The palatial interiors in which President Putin from time to time appears for public photo shoots are not tacky, seen from Moscow. Just the opposite, especially through the lens of Putin's and my generation, they are exquisite, opulent, stylish and high class. If you want to furnish your interiors to President Putin's taste, consider the following. Use the Empire style as a baseline. Ever since it first won our hearts in the first half of the 19th century, it has occasionally ceded place for fads like Jugend and modern, only to come back with a vengeance. The floor blocks must be patterned and shiny. Wooden paneling on the walls was profoundly tainted by Stalin and the rulers that wasted his legacy in the decades leading to the fall of the Soviet Union. Avoid them like the plague. No curtainless French windows. This is profoundly un-Russian. Invest in heavy, preferably embroidered drapery. Its folds signal the presence of maids who regularly give it dusting, vacuuming or take it to the cleaners. Otherwise, the peculiarities of the air in downtown Moscow almost ossify the heavy cloth after a year or two. White walls or unpatterned wallpaper won't do. Go for embossed surfaces. Be cautious with tulle netting for curtains. In regular Russian homes, using it as a second layer of curtains is almost a must. Some say it's for blocking sight from the street. Some feel it makes the room a bit cozier during the daytime. But if you belong to the movers and shakers, having the netting curtain suggests you don't possess full control over who is looking inside your room from the outside. Why would you want that? The Middle Eastern tradition of positioning most of the furniture, or all of it but the tables, along the walls should be kept in mind. The oval office-like setting, when you sit with a large part of the room and the window behind you, should be avoided. The height of the ceiling is important. It was the most striking difference between a commoner's abode and the residences for the elite during the Soviet era. Anything below 3.5 meters is hardly acceptable. Few things signal to a class-conscious Russian that Donald Trump is probably a fake billionaire like the laughable ceiling height in the man's Manhattan penthouse. Carpets on the floor. These should be big, really big. If two men can roll one and move it on the roof rack of a station wagon, it's not classy enough. Picking colors, go light. Bright oriental patterns may reveal a simple commoner's taste in you. And of course, a chandelier that no one can miss noticing, no matter how high it's hanging. When picking the style, remember, it's called lyustra in Russian for a reason. It must project luster in a million shiny ways. An interior in the Kremlin that President Putin picked for meeting his guests from Saudi Arabia, known for their rigorous taste in interiors. This one is called Green Living Room. In terms of classiness, Middle Eastern sheikhs have got nothing on our leader. Novo Ogarevo is not a private cottage of Putin, it is a state residence, which is designed for the residence of the most senior Russian officials and their families. This is half apartment, half office of special services and secretaries. You can live here temporarily, while you are a bearer of state secrets, and while you need special protection. This house was built in the 19th century, in the style of English Gothic, and belonged to Grand Duke Sergei Alexandrovich, the fifth son of Tsar Alexander II. Around the cottage there is an English-style park. Since the 1950s, this residence has been owned by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and has been used as a residence for foreign delegations, and since the 1990s as a residence for senior officials. I don't know why you don't like the Novo Ogarevo style. Perhaps you simply are not a fan of 19th century architecture, or English Gothic style. No, Putin's palace exists. Mr. Vladimir Putin, Russia's president, resides in the governmental residencies owned by the Russian state. There are several residencies available to any current president of Russia. All of these residencies are not tacky, by far. E.g., one of such residencies is the Senate Palace in Moscow Kremlin. The building is dated 18th century and has great historical and cultural value. There are working rooms of various Russian emperors, Soviet leaders and Russia's presidents preserved in this palace.